obviously we're anxious to get to Bruce, as you'd appreciate. We have a couple of topics left, and I'm not sure where we're going, but David will be answering first. We've got taxation and capital formation, or we've got NBN or the budget strategy. So where are you taking us?
We'll take the budget strategy generally, and I think the reason for doing that is that we've had, forgive me gentlemen, a good deal of political rhetoric today, but I think people sitting here and in business and in the community would like something a little more specific. So let me just say to begin with that the current the current budget deficit issue we have is largely caused by the recession, by the global financial crisis, and nothing else. Business is concerned that in adjusting this, the mode of adjustment is very critical. So my question to the three of you is as follows. Which of the following, the well-known three methods, or maybe four, three methods of correcting a budget deficit will apply in your government? Will it be to reduce expenditure? Will it be to increase taxation? Or will it involve going back into debt? Or what mix of those three things?
All right, first of all, to David Bartlett, 60 seconds.
Well, I will 100% assure that everybody in this room and all Tasmanians, a Labor government that I lead will never, ever take Tasmania back into the bad old days of general government net debt. Never. Secondly, we will not, and I make the commitment here and now, and I've made the commitment before, as evidenced in our budget this year, will not be increasing the tax burden on Tasmanians and on Tasmanian business. Therefore, in your three scenarios, it leaves one option, and that is to reduce expenditure. The other option, of course, is to ensure that we have a growing economy through strategic investment in things like optic fibre, renewable energy, water, irrigation, and as we invest in those and continue to grow the economy, we will see greater returns as well without changing the tax base.
David Bartlett, thank you. Will Hodgman.
Yeah, just touching on each of those three elements you refer to, Bruce, and I've mentioned our views with respect to taxation and what we commit to doing in government. And let me be clear, this isn't about reducing revenues to the state, it's about actually creating an environment that's more conducive to business growth and development, that generates more economic activity, reducing the land tax burden, reducing the payroll tax burden, and backing our businesses to generate more economic activity. So it's about increasing our revenues and not about reducing them, or indeed we're certainly not contemplating increasing taxation, nor are we contemplating going into debt, and I made our commitment very clear on that today and in response to the state budget. But there's no doubt as well that we can have a more efficient and effectively operating state service. We've stated our position very clearly that we will support the current moves to reduce the state service in terms of size, but we've said also that we believe we can go some way further, and we do need to cut government waste. There's been an exponential increase in money spent on unnecessaries that can be stopped.
All right, Will, thank you. Nick McKim.
Yes, going into debt to fund recurrent expenditure is a dud strategy, fatally flawed, and the Greens would never countenance it. But I do want to say that specific infrastructure projects that have the capacity to deliver intergenerational equity, it is not unreasonable to expect future generations to pay for some of those assets. That's not saying we'll go into general government net debt. I agree with David, but we must be prepared to make brave decisions, long-term decisions for the benefit of our people in the long term. Labor won't go into debt, but geez, they've sold the farm, haven't they, and propped up consolidated revenue by doing it. A rampant privatisation agenda we've seen under Labor. We're not contemplating an increase in the tax base, we're contemplating a change in the tax mix, as I said to you earlier. And yes, Bruce, of the third of your three, a decrease in expenditure, there are always efficiencies to be made, and we won't shy away from that.
Nick and Kim, thank you very much. Now, we do need to ask a question about the NBN, and looking at four blank faces, so I'll be doing that. It's on my list. Not any of us. All right, we'll scratch the question about the NBN. All right, so we'll...
Talk yourself out of a Dorothy Dixon.
I was going to say, if anyone would want to talk about it with the Premier, but well, why don't we throw that in and see how they go on their feet, eh? All right, so we'll ask about the National Broadband Network. Irrespective of what happens in March next year, Tasmania is and will be ground zero, if you like, or the initial connection point, call it what you will. Ground zero is probably the wrong thing to say. For the National Broadband Network, in what specific ways will it benefit business in Tasmania, and what can you do to ensure that we are in the best possible position to make the most of the opportunity afforded to us? And Will Hodgman, to keep the order intact, you got to go for 60 seconds.
Okay, yeah, look, it is an exciting opportunity for Tasmania, obviously, to be at the front end of this important rollout, and contrary to what David has said and might try again today, the Liberal Party here in Tasmania is supporting of this investment for obvious reasons. Our geographical limitations and the low productivity rates, all the things that have kept our economy not as efficient or as productive as it might otherwise be, could be severely advantaged, will be severely advantaged by having this sort of important infrastructure here in this state, not only to assist Tasmanian business but also Tasmanian households, and we are supportive of this sort of investment. In fact, when we lodged our own submission to the federal government's request for infrastructure projects, and did so before the government, before there was any suggestion that this NBN project would be rolled out, let alone in Tasmania first, we identified this as one of our priorities. It's an important enabler, but the critical question remains how we get Tasmanians.
Thank you very much, Will Hodgman. Nick McKim, 60 seconds on the NBN.
Thank you, Tim. Look, there's no doubt that the NBN provides Tasmanian business, and for that matter, every person, man, woman and child, in this state with massive opportunities, because what it does is it will shrink the tyranny of distance to effectively a mere inconvenience. And I'd like to change the tone a bit by congratulating David for what he did. He paid the deposit. He didn't bring this investment to Tasmania, it was coming anyway. But what he did was get us a big competitive advantage. First cab off the rank advantage. And the trick now for David is not to rest on his laurels, because this is the first step, not the last. We need to leverage this 6-month advantage that we have as a result of a very good, very brave decision that David made, and make sure that all businesses and all communities benefit. I mean, there are virtual health applications, there are massive intellectual content and online digital content applications, arts, and time's beaten.
Thank you very much, Nick McKim. And David Bartlett, 60 seconds on the broadband.
The rollout of optic fibre in Tasmania to 200,000 homes, businesses, schools and hospitals will be as important to the next 5 decades in Tasmania as hydro-industrialisation was to the middle 5 decades of the last century. Let me give you 2 examples. An elderly lady will be able to live for longer in her home because augmenting the 1 home and community care visit she gets a month at the moment, every day on her television screen there will be a virtual presence to check on her well-being. A company like Huon Aquaculture, who develops state-of-the-art fish farm management technology and sells it to Northern Europe, will not only be able to sell the technology, but be able to sell the services that manage that technology and effectively manage fish farms from all the way across the world here in Tasmania.